Hi. First of all, it's great to be here again. As Rashmi Uncle Koti mentioned, I'm a past member of this club, and it's wonderful to hear all the good work that you're doing. And so thank you for having me here. Thank you, Rotarian Rashmi Uncle Koti, for calling me over. Thank you, Ranbir, Ralphie. And it's good to meet many friends and see many familiar faces here. So very, very happy to be here. So a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about creativity. Now, when we think about creativity, somehow the image that comes to our mind is a slightly esoteric one. So at least for me, the image that comes to my mind is, my mind goes back to my college, actually school days, when, we used to have this Mile Sur Mera Tumhara, there used to be this song on TV. And I remember Bhimsen Joshi sitting by the riverside singing. And then Ustad Zakir Hussain, वो अरे हुजूर वा ताज बोलिए, ताज महल के सामने तबला बजा रहे हैं. Somehow the image of creativity is that it is something very distant, very unrelatable, very inaccessible, and we think, if you're a genius like Mozart, I mean, he composed, full musical pieces by the time he was 5 years old. Somewhere we feel that either you've got to be a genius or you've got to be sitting in some other stratosphere, composing your ragas or, painting or something like that. So that's the first question. Is creativity really that inaccessible and remote, or is it something that all of us, each one of us, can somehow bring into our lives? Now, if you just take a step back and look around us, we see creativity and beauty everywhere. So, when a sapling grows into a plant, when a bud turns into a flower, when a plant grows into a tree, all of that is nature's creative forces at work. So somewhere that creative force is present all around us, and yet it seems somehow inaccessible to us. हमें लगता है कि यार मैं कोई शायर थोड़ी बनने वाला हूँ, मुझे क्या करना है creativity से, right? That's the thought that comes to a lot of our minds. Now, let me ask you all a question. If there is one feeling that you feel you would like to recapture from your childhood days, what would that feeling be? Any one feeling that you would like to recapture? Anybody? Innocence. Okay, great. Anything else?
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. Sure. Sorry? Free mind. Wonderful. So that's exactly what it is. Childhood is about freedom, about unconditional love, untainted by the world, about innocence, about joy, about wonder, about curiosity. If you look at a lot of creative people, and these don't have to be artists, they can be scientists or anything else, many of them retained the sense of wonder till much later in life. So whether it was Swami Vivekanand, whether it was Marie Curie and, her work on radioactivity, even more recently, Elon Musk and his, when he first said we've got to go and, build a colony in Mars, now it seems like a childish fantasy somehow, but he's working towards it. So somewhere, Akio Morita, the founder of Sony, he was obsessed with electronics almost like a kid. Walt Disney, he fell in love with his characters. So many of these creative people somehow have retained that sense of joy and wonder from their childhood. But somewhere for many of us, as life responsibilities, bachche ka board exam, bosses, deadlines, targets, if you're running a business, then yaar wo supplier tang kar raha hai, client ne, paise nahi diye, bank se financing nahi mila, something, all these things somehow cloud that magic. And that's why the topic today is unlock your creativity, because all of us have this creative instinct, but somewhere us pe tala lag gaya hai. We have to unlock it. So the question is, how do we go about unlocking that creativity? So it's very simple. A flower to bloom, it doesn't need too much, but somewhere there are forces which are stunting that creativity. So I'm here to talk about that today. So first thing is to bust a few myths and misconceptions about creativity. So the first myth is that creativity is about, आपको poem लिखनी है, शायरी करनी है, किताब लिखना है, music compose करना है, तो वो creativity है. That is not creativity. That is not only that is not creativity. Any of you, I'm sure, I know that there are many people who run large businesses here. When you run a business, when you're an entrepreneur, there is a lot of creativity involved. You must all have heard that story about a business owner who sent 2 of his salesmen to an island, remote island. It's not a real story. Apparently, one salesman went there and saw that this was a shoe company. So one of the salesmen went there and saw that none of the inhabitants of that island was wearing a shoe. And so he wrote back to his boss, sorry, nobody wears shoes here, no opportunity. Another salesman went there and said, nobody wears shoes here, this is a wonderful opportunity. So as an entrepreneur, when you see opportunity where others don't see it, that is an act of creativity. When you launch a new product, go into a new market, that is an act of creativity. And I know that there are, Rotary does a lot of social work. When you think of a new way with which to reach underserved populations, when you think of a new way to be of help to somebody else, that is creativity too. So creativity can be in the social arena, it can be in social service. And I think We Care was founded by, I think, a former Rotarian, Vandana ji. So creativity is, so that's the first myth. Creativity is not just about writing books or poems. So each one of you, I'm 100% sure, has one or maybe multiple creative ideas, whether it's entrepreneurial, social, etc., etc. So that's the first myth. Second myth, somebody told me recently कि यार मुझे कौन सा बुकर प्राइज मिलने वाला है. आप किताब बुकर प्राइज मिलने के लिए नहीं लिख रहे हो. The main job, the main reason you're trying to be creative is for yourself, so that you can experience the joy of a child. And once you experience the joy of a child, automatically those who read your book will experience it as well. When I write my book, when I'm writing it, if I stop having fun, that's an immediate red flag for me. Because kabhi story, our left brain is very logical. It is not able to perceive these subtle things. Somewhere I start feeling when I'm writing कि यार मजा नहीं आ रहा है. I keep refining it जब तक वो मजा नहीं आने लग जाए. And that is a fantastic barometer to see if other people will enjoy it or not. A third myth, many people say, yaar, I'm too old. So Mark Twain published his first book at the age of 41. Captain Nair founded Leela Hotels in his 60s. The founder of KFC, Colonel Sanders, had a series of failed entrepreneurial ventures. Finally, he founded KFC in his 60s. Tolkien, the writer of Lord of the Rings, he wrote it at age 45. Darwin, wrote his Origin of Species at age 50. So age is no bar. Some people say, I'm too young. Abhi main paise kamata hoon, I need to do X, Y, Z, baad mein kar lenge creativity. Arey, these are the most creative years of your life. As Napoleon said, right? Land and money can be reclaimed, but time can never be reclaimed. So there is the saying that the best time to do something was maybe 10 years ago. The second best time is to do it now. So therefore, time is not a bar, age is not a bar. And with this understanding, then some people say that I don't have time in the day. And that's a very real problem. Mind space nahi hai. Time hoga bhi to, but I'm worried about my next meeting or, my next deal or something. Or, family responsibilities. This is a real problem. I had it. So when I was writing my first book, I used to work for a private equity fund called Macquarie. And I used to travel a lot. And then I was working for a group in Singapore. Again, I took something like 350 flights in 2.5 years. And these were international flights. I checked with the stewardess. It was roughly half of what the stewardess does. So at any point in time, I would be so tired कि boss जाके बस सोना है. How do you find mind space to write? I realized that there are significant parts of the day when we actually waste time. If you phone mein, there is a feature by which you can check the amount of time that you spend on the phone. I was shocked to realize that my time was 3 hours. 3 hours in the day we are spending. Of course, some of that must be work calls and all, but it's still upwards of 1 to 2 hours. That's the amount of time we have. If we free that up, jab aapko mauka mile, instead of reaching for the phone, why don't you try and think? Now, that is not easy to do. Frankly, what I have found best is, finance mein there is this saying, pay yourself first. अगर आपको पैसा बचाना है तो पहले जो बचाने वाला पैसा है उसको अलग रखिए, उसके बाद खर्चा कीजिए. दिस इज अ स्टैंडर्ड रूल इन फाइनेंस. सिमिलरली, अगर आपको क्रिएटिव काम करना है तो माय सजेशन इज ट्राई टू एलोकेट अर्ली मॉर्निंग फॉर इट. वो आप कर लो, उसके बाद रेस्ट ऑफ द डे डू व्हाटएवर यू वांट. बिकॉज आप क्रिएटिव काम दोपहर में या रात में करने के लिए रखोगे तो समथिंग और द अदर विल कीप इंटरफियरिंग. सो डू इट फर्स्ट, पे योरसेल्फ फर्स्ट. So this is what it is. These are some of the myths. Now, ठीक है, अगर आपने decide किया, चलो ठीक है, age is no bar, चलिए ठीक है, I may not want to be a shyer, but I want to think of a new venture. Okay, I'm ready to be creative. Now what do I do? करना क्या है? So there is a friend of mine I met recently. He runs a company. He asked me, "Ki, yaar, how do you write? What do you do?" Matlab, when I have to run a company, I have the product launch dates, I have the channel checks, I have my marketing team, I do a marketing plan with them. What do you do when you want to write or when you want to be creative? Karoge kya? Laptop ke samne, what do you do? So that brings us to the next part. Whether it's a new venture, whether it's a new social activity, whether it's music, art, anything, how do you go about implementing, assuming you have got rid of all these false myths and beliefs, right? So what do? The first thing is allocate some time during the day. Preferably, as I said, early in the morning. Choose some activity which makes you feel like a child again. Agar aap during school and college you loved singing in bonfires and somehow that habit has got lost, make a beginning with that, starting to learn singing. If you can't learn a full song, learn a paragraph of a song. If you like gardening, start with that. If you like cooking, start with that. If you like experimenting with colors or paints, start with that. But make a beginning, allocate some time, preferably in the first half of the day. Now, the second bottleneck which a lot of people have is ki inspiration nahi aa raha hai. Very common thing, right? When I first started writing, when I was in these various jobs before I set up my own company, I used to have the same problem. एक रात को अचानक inspiration आ गया, I would be sitting and writing till 2 o'clock. And then 2 महीने तक घंटी नहीं बजी. फिर 2 महीने बाद फिर से घंटी बज गई, फिर से लिख दिया. After a year, if you take these 5 pieces that I wrote, it would seem like 5 different people have written them because each time the mood was different. That is no use. Inspiration comes to those who are regular. So instead of waiting for inspiration, allocate a little time, maybe half an hour every day to your activity, but be regular about it. You will realize that automatically when you're regular, inspiration will start coming to you. So many of those days, maybe you will not get any inspiration. Maybe no ideas will come to you. That's perfectly fine. I've stared at a blank screen sometimes for 1 month while writing because I got no ideas. But you do that and it's almost like the universe saying, अच्छा बेटा तुमने 1 महीना लगा दिया इस पे तो चलो ये मैं 1 दिन में आपको 1 महीना वर्थ के आइडियाज दे रहा हूं. That happens. So don't wait for inspiration. Do your work, inspiration will follow. The second problem, and this is a big stumbling block, many people start and then stop. Why do they stop? They stop because they have this feeling कि यार मैं लिख तो रहा हूं, मुझे लगता है कि इतना घटिया मेरी राइटिंग है, this is of no use. Writing हो या art हो या whatever it is, यार idea है लेकिन this idea seems like funny, people will laugh. This is the biggest problem. This desire to be perfect. It happens even to people who are even at your respective work, when you're trying something really new, people will encounter this. There will be this period when you feel कि यार ये actually ठीक नहीं है, this doesn't pass the test. ये जो perfectionism का जो feeling है, this is actually a mask. Actually, you are not trying to be perfect. You are so afraid of failing that you are saying कि यार मैं perfect तो हूं नहीं तो छोड़ दो. Let me not even try. If I don't try, I can't fail. There is a friend of mine, he I think writes much better than me, but whenever he writes, he says कि यार ये Graham Greene level का नहीं है, and he tears it up or whatever, he ignores it. And he has been doing this for 15 years. Because somewhere you will start somewhere, it will be imperfect. It's okay. You're writing primarily or writing or painting or singing primarily for your joy. It's perfectly fine to be imperfect. There is the saying, right? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Start with good, perfect will follow. So this is a big bottleneck. In fact, you'll be surprised in many of the corporate, when I sit even with CEOs and boards of companies, many of them have the same problem in the business world as well. Because many of them, the CEO is reluctant to propose a plan which doesn't seem perfect. The CEO feels that ye perfect hona chahiye, I have to have everything covered when I propose to the board. If he says, but you cannot predict everything. You have to start with something that works and then gradually work towards perfection. So that is a big bottleneck. Okay, so you've got over this perfectionism, you've not waited for inspiration, then what do? So in this period that you allot, I don't know what amount of time you can spare, whether it's half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever, there is this thing called deep work. There is a book which was published recently called Deep Work. Deep work means that for that time, phone off or phone on silent, keep it away, no interruptions. And no interruptions means zero interruptions. Like nobody should come in. There is this investor called Bill Ackman. He runs a large hedge fund. He's a billionaire, one of the most successful hedge fund managers. He says that when he sits and thinks about stock ideas, if somebody knocks and asks for tea, his whole thinking goes for a toss. I don't know if you've heard this story. There is this person called Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He wrote this book, The Ancient Mariner. So the story is that he apparently had a dream in which a full poem came to him. Kubla Khan was the name of the poem. He woke up and he started jotting it from his memory. He was halfway through jotting it when somebody knocked on the door to ask for some papers or something. That's it. After he went away, he didn't remember a single line from his memory. That poem, Kubla Khan, is considered a masterpiece, but it is unfinished till this day. This was 200 years ago. Till date, he died without being able to finish the poem. There is something very sacrosanct about deep work. Just start doing 2 hours of deep work. Do it for, I would say, in a month or 2 months, you will start feeling the difference. What is this difference? Your subconscious mind, or psychologists call it the unconscious mind, that starts working with you. They say ना कि किसी हिंदी मूवी में ये डायलॉग था कि आप अगर एक कदम उठाओ तो पूरी कायनात आपका साथ देगी. Something like that. The whole universe makes way for the person who knows where he is going. Similarly, you start doing this deep work, you will realize that a lot of things start coming together. You just do it for 2 months, you will see the difference. What are these things that start coming together? That is your subconscious or unconscious mind. There is this person called Kekule. He was a scientist. For years, he was doing research on the structure of the benzene molecule. And then he slept one day and the whole structure came to him in a dream. He got a dream that there is a snake and the snake is holding its own tail. And benzene ka structure aisa hexagon jaisa hai, cyclical. It's like a snake holding its own tail. And he got up and said, wow, this is the structure. Paul McCartney, Beatles, many of you may have heard the song, Yesterday, All My Troubles Seem So Far Away. That came to him in a dream. He got up, went to the piano and started composing it. There are many more. There are many more such cases. Archimedes, right? It didn't come to him in the dream, but he was sitting in a bathtub and he got this funda of buoyancy and he got up and said, Eureka. We can all have these Eureka moments. You need to do deep work, but there is one more trick to it. The trick is you have to alternate. Do a little bit of deep work and then forget about it and relax. Again do deep work, again relax. Every day you can do this. Psychologists call this incubation. Apparently, when you do deep focused work, your conscious mind is at play. When after that, after doing this deep work, if you go for a walk, go to the gym or whatever, play a game, spend time with your kids, your subconscious mind is still working. And that is the one that comes up with these ideas. Now, both have to go together. If you don't do the deep work, the subconscious mind has nothing to work with. कोई raw material है नहीं. आप सिर्फ relax करोगे तो कोई idea आएगा नहीं, because फिर आप वही बात होगी ना, inspiration का wait कर रहे हो. That's not how it works. But if you do this, so just do this for 2 months in whatever field you want. You want to start a venture, you want to write a book, you want to compose a song, act in a movie. I read yesterday or today that somebody who is 75 years old is apparently, first time trying to act. When you do deep work and you alternate between deep work and rest or relaxation, that's the best situation for the subconscious mind to work with you. And once the subconscious mind starts working, it's like saying कि आप अकेले चल रहे हो और अचानक आपके साथ 100 लोग चल रहे हैं, because it has been proven now that we use only a small percentage of our minds. If you start doing this, you start using up much larger faculties. We have powers beyond what we can think. So that, in short, is actually how you can unlock your creativity. Get rid of false beliefs. Age is not a bar. Don't be shy. Don't think, don't think, अरे मेरे को Booker Prize नहीं मिलने वाला है. A dabba wali a person who, makes dabbas and delivers, a lady who does that, is creative and no different from Elon Musk. You don't have to necessarily do things at a certain scale. So that is not a bar. Don't try to be perfect. Start with whatever you have. Make a beginning. Don't wait for inspiration, be regular, do deep work and alternate. These are broadly the secrets of unlocking your creativity. Once you start on this path, one thing you have to be prepared for, most of our daily life, we spend using the left brain. All our work, presentations are all logical, even our family, the decisions we make, we don't take unnecessary risks because we are logical. Left brain is overused. What happens when you start unlocking your creativity is your right brain also starts getting used. Now, that can lead to a feeling of losing control. You start feeling, for me, for instance, many times it's happened that ek mahine tak idea nahi aaya, and then the day that I have a big presentation, the previous night I start getting ideas. Then I'm sitting and typing those ideas till 2 or 3, and then sitting inside the presentation, I'm getting ideas. And I can't let go of the ideas. I take out my phone, Samsung Notes mein jaake jaldi se I'm writing. I've lost control, and unfortunately that's how it is. That actually makes it fun. That's actually what, if everything was predictable and you knew what your book is going to look like, fir maza hi kya hai usme? Sometimes when I write, the suspense comes because when I'm writing it, sometimes even I don't know what's going to happen in the next chapter. When I feel that way, the reader will automatically feel the same thing. So the first book I had no clue how it was going to end. And, in fact, I had to junk almost 70,000 words because the ending was not coming properly. That loss of control you have to be okay with, but it's what makes creativity in life beautiful. So to summarize, if there is one thing I would say dream big. Dream big. Don't put a censorship karne ki zarurat nahi hai. Don't censor your dreams, but start small. Because अगर आपका ड्रीम ये है कि मुझे मार्स जाना है, which was Elon Musk's dream, it's daunting. Break it down. मुझे कल बैठना है आधा घंटा. That's how you break it down into smaller things, accomplish the smaller things. Mark Zuckerberg, when they set up Facebook, it was just a network to connect people in the dormitory or hostel in campus. They had no clue that it would become so big one day. So start small, but make a beginning. If there is one thing I'd like to leave you with today, it is this. Make a beginning. You want to do some social work, make a beginning by helping one person. If you want to write a book, make a beginning by writing the first paragraph. You want to sing, एक favorite गाना choose कर लो, उसका एक paragraph से चालू करो. You want to paint, please start off doing whatever comes to your mind, but make a beginning. I'd like to end with just one quote from this lady called Marianne Williamson. I think it was quoted by Nelson Mandela also later. She says that we are not scared that we are weak. We are scared actually that we might be too strong. What scares us is not the darkness. What scares us is the light within us. We are scared that we are powerful beyond measure. So each of us has that light of creativity within us. Please make a beginning. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions?
Are your books here?
Sure. So the first book, which was published in 2018, was called Kalkut. Kalkut, The Lost Himalayan Secret. That's the full name. So this is a thriller with a historical angle. Starts from the bylanes of Bombay. You'll recognize many of the places, Mondegar and so on, and ends in a remote corner of the Himalayas. Incidentally, this was written in 2018. It actually talks about a bioweapon which can cause a pandemic. It was written much before COVID happened. The second book is Agniban, which was published last year. So Agniban is again a thriller with a historical angle. It starts in the pyramids of Egypt and then goes through, it incorporates climate change, electronic warfare and so on. My third book should be out early next year. It's a thriller set in the stock markets. Sorry?
Most of are based on science fiction.
So the first two have a science component to it, but it's not like, you don't need to know science to read it. It's basically a plot, yeah. The third book is in the stock markets, but it's a thriller, so nothing to do with science. My fourth book may be on mindfulness meditation, which I've learned and that helped me a lot in my writing. So it might be on mindfulness, yeah.
Which is the best book you like to read?
Which is the best book I like to read? So it's a combination. So fiction mein, thrillers, I've read the usual Frederick Forsyth, Robert Ludlum, John Le Carre. There is this ancient Chinese book called Tao Te Ching, you read it, you realize that the Taoist philosophy is so similar to our Advait Vedant philosophy. So that I liked. There is this book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's a short book written by Viktor Frankl. He was actually a Jew who was, held in a Nazi concentration camp, and he survived. Looking at what was the psyche of the people who survived, he wrote about that. So yeah, these are some of the books that I like. But my favorite thing is to curl up in bed reading a thriller. Yeah.
So writing is also thriller only. You go for thriller genre only.
No, actually the first two books were thrillers. As I said, my fourth book will be a non-fiction about mindfulness and meditation. Yeah.
What prompted you to write BSc book?
I'm sorry?
What prompted you to write BSc book?
Stock market. Okay. So I have been in the stock markets now for more than 20 years. So in fact, it may be interesting cheese. So I started my career with Credit Suisse in the stock market, then JP Morgan. I was an stock market investor, a private equity investor as well. And I've been investing for more than 20 years. Interestingly, I have learned more about investing in the last 7 years that I've been writing and meditating than in the previous 20 years that I was with all these firms. Because what I realized is investing is only partly about skill and knowledge, but it is mostly about temperament and attitude. Yeah, psychology, yes. So yeah, that's why since I'm from the stock market, it was easy for me to write that. Yeah.
But
So,
when you have to make money, you have to have some knowledge. You just can't
no, true. Knowledge, I'm not denying that. Knowledge, what I'm saying is, knowledge आपको एक हद तक ले जाएगा. Knowledge तो minimum है, लेकिन उसके बाद temperament है. Wisdom, correct, wisdom. Yeah. Absolutely. And if you look at all the greats, Warren Buffett, अपने इंडिया में राकेश झुंझुनवाला, all of them, Titan stock went down so many times, he still held through that. Knowledge alone will not allow you to do that. Yeah. Sorry, somebody from there. Yeah.
Actually, since you were talking about creativity, I had a personal opinion question. It is said that every person is either right brain dominant or either the left brain dominant. So it's like intelligence, logic and creativity.
Yeah.
Right? So since we are not being able to pick it, but if you could, would you still pick up creative end of your dominance, or would you pick the logical end of your dominance? Since you're also in the
Sure. So here's what I would say. No, this is a very good question. This is a very good question. So actually what I realized is these traditional, please have a seat, these traditional notions that one person is only left or right, that is exactly what I'm challenging. What I'm saying, I thought I was left brain because I was in conventional financial jobs for 20 years, but I realized, actually there is this whole right brain side which is unexplored. All of us have both faculties. If people say you're left brain, all it means is you have unlocked the left brain part but not the right brain part. So you don't have to choose, that's the best part.
Actually, yeah, so we do have a part to unlock either of them, or both of them for that matter, but the thing is that they said that either of them is dominant, you can only have one dominant. So what would you prefer?
So, the simple, I know I'm dodging the question a little, but the simple thing is you go with what the universe is telling you. You go with what the universe is telling you. The moment you are trying to choose one, you are interfering with what the universe wants to reveal to you. So for me, I was left brain dominant by that logic for 20 years. And in the last 7-8 years, the universe has unlocked the right brain. If I had chosen to try and say, nahi, main to right brain dominant hoga, this would not have got unlocked at all. So I would say, let the universe show you the way. Now, how will the universe show you the way? Kaun hai universe? Baat kaise kare isse? So which is why you do this deep work, be regular, and the universe will start talking to you. Trust me on it. It will start talking to me. Ideas nowadays come to me without my having to think about them consciously. Yeah.
Venkatesh, what is your opinion about this creativity can be enhanced if you are able to balance your fearlessness in your mind? And there are 5 fears that generally people carry. One is the fear of criticism, second is the fear of loss of love, fear of poverty, fear of ill health, and fear of death.
Oh, this is beautiful. I didn't know that there were these specific 5 fears, but you are absolutely correct. It's fears that come in the way of creativity. Now, not all of these can be like if a person is poor and he's fearing poverty, it's understandable. But many times we have these fears even though we don't need to have that fear. So a person who is well off does not need to fear poverty anymore. And death to bhaiya jo hai so hai, everybody has death. So absolutely, so fear is one of the biggest things that comes in the way of creativity. Fear of criticism, that's exactly the thing that I spoke about, which is many of us not only are afraid of criticism from outside, we are afraid of our own inner critic. We have a critic sitting inside our head. That is that perfectionism that we talk about. This fear of failure comes from our inner critic. Somewhere we feel that, arey, if I write something or if I come up with something which is not good enough, मैं अपने आप को माफ नहीं कर पाऊंगा. Don't be so harsh on yourself. Relax. So that criticism fear is a very, very big one. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I think, but where would we get your books? I think it would have been a lovely evening to have you sign the books and we could buy some.
Yeah, I should have got them along. It was a miss from my side. Maybe in one of the next meetings I can have the books.
Publisher, or where
So
do we get
the publisher is Tree Shade Books. My books are available in Amazon and in bookstores as well. I write under the name S.Venkatesh, and Kalkut and Agniban are the names. You'll get it on Amazon and Flipkart and of course on all the bookstores. Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Yes, sure. I would love to. Yeah, absolutely. I missed it this time, but yes, next time would love to do that. Sure. Wonderful.
Can you give vote of thanks?
Sure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.